And it is time to go live, ladies and gentlemen, and we are live. Hello out there in internet land. Hello, hello. It is July 2nd. July 2nd here in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Oh, nice, cool, and rainy day. My beloved, the great Betty Sue, is down in Austin, Texas. In Austin, Texas, where it's routinely 100 degrees. I adore my beloved Miss Betty Sue, but I am not desirous to be in Austin, Texas, where it's 100 degrees, not even a little. Now, the project I've been involved in, ladies and gentlemen, the project I've been involved in very heavily the last few months. Hi, Tony Hewlick. How are you? Let's see. Yeah. Hi, Martha. I've been involved with the Miss Bellows Falls Diner, which is a beautiful little 1941 or so Worcester lunch car, can seat 32 people. It's a small, little tiny diner. And it closed at the start of the pandemic. It has been sort of stumbling along for the last decade or two, moving from owner to owner, none of whom really have put any money into the diner. And, you know, diners were not built to be historical structures. They just inadvertently became historical structures. Anyway, a nonprofit that I'm involved with in town called Rockingham for Progress has purchased the diner. We raised $100,000 early. And we have gotten a $100,000 grant to restore the car itself. The whole idea is to get the car restored, to construct infrastructure around it that will allow a diner to survive in the food service industry of today, which probably means that we'd build some additional seating, update the kitchen, ADA compliant bathrooms, outdoor seating, things like that. It's going to be a $500,000 project. And the Preservation Trust of Vermont, who we're working with, has been wonderful. But one of the things they are asking of us is that we raise at least $250,000 on our own. So the liberal snowplowing do-gooders are going to do a veritable fire hose of do-gooding to get a Robert Benchley stool. The next phase of the diner fundraising is going to be naming rights to the 12 stools, to the counter, and to the booths. It costs $5,000 per stool. My goal is to have the Robert Benchley stool. The Robert Benchley stool, and if it goes really, really well, we may go for an Algonquin table. We'll see. But anyway, people have been wonderful. I put the fundraiser up last night on Faceplant, and we've already raised over $500 of that $5,000. So we're over 10% of the way there, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to be, the next few weeks, I'm just going to be flogging this. So you might as well get prepared for coughing up money for the Robert Benchley stool at Miss Bellows Falls Diner. We have a bunch of people to thank. One holdover from last week where we, who did we help last week? Oh, we helped the donkeys. We saved the donkeys, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Will. There's my brother. Yeah, there's John Will. Oh, I'll be reading everybody's names. So we have one holdover from last week when we were saving the donkeys, and the donkeys are all now saved, which is great. Mr. Ren Campbell. Now this week, these are the diner enablers, the Robert Benchley stool procurers. My friend from Exeter, and then from Yale, Miss Sharon Kegeris, and Claremont, New Hampshire. Let us not forget that. Mr. John T. Wilhelm out there in Omaha, Nebraska, where he is as terrified of his mandolin slicer as I am of mine. Mr. John Wilhelm. Down there in Guilford, Vermont, learning the magic of spreadsheets. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Sarah Ovenden. Out in Chicagoland, old Boston friend, Roots on the Rails, trip taker, and her beloved, Ms. Jamie Barth. She was also very, very involved in Club Passim and other worthwhile folk music projects. Ms. Jamie Barth and Mr. Richard Yorty. Right here in Westminster, Vermont. Right here in Westminster, Vermont. Oh, with Augusta Auctions, Mr. Bob Ross. A wonderful human being who I am going to see if I have any of the art materials she needs. She's going to be taking an art class. And she's like, this is a daunting list. I'm going to go over it with her and see if I have anything that she needs. Miss Kathleen Gabotsky. My fellow Putney painter and dear friend, Madeline Sika Aldrich. Miss Karen Faisler. Lorianne D'Antonio. She is a big diner fancier, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Lorianne. Oh, the great Laurie LaRue, another Putney painter friend, one of the great human beings on this planet, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Laurie LaRue. My dear artist friend, Catherine Fisher, in Saxon's River. The indomitable, the unexcelled, the never equaled Ms. Martha Rowley. Oh, peripatetic, she's on her way again somewhere or other. Ms. Terry Hudson. My dear brother, Mr. Will Hunter. Mr. Will Hunter saving the world. One quixotic human after another. Mr. Will Hunter. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Out there, they showed bridge collapsing how to be done. They showed Philadelphia like the year before, and Philadelphia was like, we got to get some of that. Out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My very, 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 very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, and his wonderful wife Elise, and their little tiny dog, Ginger. Oh, that got kind of anemic there. Went, ugh. Oh, well. Anyway, we have 2 readings tonight because they're brief. They're brief. 2 Robert Benchley readings from My 10 Years in a Quandary and How They Grew. I believe it was Catherine Fisher who sent me this book. I'd always had a paperback version of it that was seriously falling apart, so this is a blessing to have a hardbound version. First reading tonight, Skol. Professor Claude Hansen of Norway has announced that he recently drank a 98% solution of heavy water, HO, without experiencing any ill effects. That's what he thinks. That's what the man said who first drank an Alexander cocktail, which is 1/2 gin, 1/4 creme de cacao, 1/4 sweet cream. The professor admitted that he had to, quote, fight against hysteria when he saw a mouse that drank heavy water at the same time show signs of illness immediately after the experiment. The mouse was no fool, obviously. He didn't even have to fight against hysteria. Of course, I would have to fight against hysteria if I simply saw a mouse following a drink of heavy water or even vodka. The presence of a mouse in the room would give me the tip-off. Next would come the muskrats, then the mongoose, and then in sly succession, the larger, more vivid animals. When one is experimenting with a new drink, the fewer livestock that are around, the better. However, there is one item in the cable from Norway which makes me think that Professor Hansen may be onto something. It is in the form of a follow-up, and it reads, Professor Claus Hansen of Oslo University was so pleased today with his first quaff of heavy water that he has ordered 2 liters, 2.1134 quarts, more, valued at 20,000 kroner, about $5,080 for further experiment. Now, in the first place, that runs into money. You don't order drinks for further experiment at $2,000 a throw unless there's certain pleasing features connected with it. It says that Professor Hansen was so pleased, which is probably the scientific way of saying that Professor Hansen was still cockeyed. Of course, someone else is paying the check, but even at that, there's a lordly, free-handed air about ordering that indicates that heavy water is not a depressant at any rate. And what about the mouse? Does he get in on the future experiments? Or does he go back on scotch and water? Does he go back on scotch and plain water just because he got a little sick on that first drink? He took just the same chance that the professor did. He may not have held it so well, but if it's as good as it seems to be, he certainly ought to be given another whack at it. Maybe he just drank his first one too fast. He is just a kid. Until the price comes down, it doesn't look as if many of us will get the chance to see what there is in heavy water that pleased Professor Hansen so much. The formula is simple. Just 2 parts more hydrogen than there is in ordinary water. We might be able to whip up a tubful in the kitchen sometime and give it a try with a little orange bitters. I don't suppose it would stand much shaking, though. That hydrogen is tricky stuff. On the whole, it might be better to wait for the report on the professor's next session with it. He may think now that he wants some more, but when the time comes and he gets the glass right up to his lips, he may string right along with the mouse. Often one thinks that one has had a good time with some new drink, but when the showdown comes for a repeat, a slight repulsion. A slight repulsion sets in, and one realizes that the good time came from the singing or from the company. Drinks get an awful lot of credit in retrospect that they don't really deserve. However, here's to Professor Hansen for taking the chance, and here's the University of Oslo for being such a charming host to the tune of 20,000 kroner. And here also is to the mouse. That's the first reading, ladies and gentlemen. That's the first reading from the great My 10 Years in a Quandary and How They Grew. The second reading is the classic. I've never read before. I mean, I've read it before, but I've never read it aloud. All Aboard for Dementia Praecox. It's a little terrifying with all that I have to do this week to discover that I have a Dementia Praecox into the bargain. What next, I often ask myself. There is no doubt about the Dementia Praecox. I've got it all right. The only question now is, can I swing the other things that I have to face? A good case of Dementia Praecox is about enough for 1 week. I got my data from a report submitted at the American Psychiatric Association. This report said that Dementia Praecox can be helped by oxygen treatment. And in passing, the report just happened to mention the symptoms of Dementia Praecox. Not that any of its readers would find it applicable to themselves, just in passing, you know. Early stages. 1, defective judgment. Well, I could keep you here all night giving examples of my defective judgment that would make your blood curdle. I could not even judge a sack race. On this count, I qualify, hands down. 2, retarded perception. I didn't even know the fleet was in until I read Time 10 days later. 3, restrictions in the field of attention. My attention can be held only by strapping me down onto a cot and sitting on my chest. Even then, my eyes wander. 4, deficiency of ethical inhibitions. I took a course in ethics once. I didn't do very well in it. We didn't know about inhibitions in my day. They came in with horn-rimmed glasses and Freud. We just said, yes, please, or no, thanks, and let it go at that. I don't know whether I've got ethical inhibitions or not. Just try me once, that's all. 5, silly laughter. I hold the Interscholastic New England Intercollegiate East Coast Amateur and Open Professional Cups for silly laughter. I laugh at anything except a French clown. It can't be sillier than that. Among the more advanced symptoms of Dementia Praecox, I find to my horror the following. 1, One, lack of skill in motor performance. I was asked to surrender my license while driving an old Model T Ford in 1915 because I could not coordinate in time to press the clutch in at just the right moment. I also had a little trouble with right and left. Next to silly laughter, lack of skill in motor performance is my forte. 2, stupor. We need not go into this. The last thing I remember clearly is that elaborate parade for Admiral Dewey under the arch at 23rd Street. Since then, I've more or less taken things easily. In addition, I can say that there are hundreds of people willing to bet that I have never had my eyes open. I have no proof to the contrary. So, Dementia Praecox it is, boys, and may the best man win. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us for Benchley Night tonight. We'll be back next Sunday for another episode or two of the great Robert Benchley. You take good care. See you soon. Bye-bye.